Thank you guys so much for coming out today, and I am a soft speaker, so I'm going to try my best to use my big girl voice and project out to you guys today. But as she said, I am the founder and owner of Feel More Waste Less. It is a zero waste refill store right here in Cincinnati. And before I get started on the topic of simplicity, I wanted to kind of open this up and say that I would love to have a conversation with you guys. I've got some questions that I'll be asking, and I would love to hear kind of your responses to those questions. Like she said, I'm a big believer in community. That's where we grow, that's where we learn. And we learn by sharing our experiences and sharing what we've learned. And I would love to hear what you guys have to say about your experiences and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it. So simplicity. I will be sharing about kind of what I've learned about simplicity, how I relate to it, and also how I've come to believe that we can simplify our lives. So this is the first statement. Simplicity is the goal. So my first question to you guys is this statement something you guys believe? Is it something that you question? What is your first initial thought when you see this? Does anyone have first initial thoughts?
I believe it. It's just really hard to attain.
Yeah. It definitely is really hard. Anybody else kind of agree with that sentiment?
I love simplicity as well. It's one of the challenges can be when you live in a family, different people can have different definitions of that and how to go about it.
Yeah.
So coming to some sort of an agreement can also be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and that kind of segues me into my kind of point of in my early 20s, simplicity was my goal. And my trouble was that my definition of simplicity was not my own definition. I was operating under a definition that was kind of taught to me. And that definition was go to school, get a degree, and get a job. So I went to school, I got a degree, and I got a job. That degree was in nursing, and I was a nurse for 3 years. And I got a job, then I got another job, then I got another job, because I was just not finding alignment in that way of living. So that's kind of when I realized I gotta change courses, I gotta figure out something else. And I have to define simplicity for myself. And of course, when we talk about a subject, we have to define that subject. Can someone read this for me?
Simplicity, the quality or condition of being easy to understand or do.
And in this definition, I really love the quality or condition, because that really, it leads us to understand that we have some kind of influence in simplicity in our lives, because we have influence over the quality and the condition. And the next thing is kind of the 4 pillars of simplicity. And by pillars, I mean things that will help us as we try to simplify our lives. The first thing is intention. The second thing is creativity, which all of you would kind of feel aligned to creativity in some way, I feel. Is that correct? Or okay.
We hope so.
I was gonna say, it's in the name, I think so. But yeah, and then patience and strength. So intention is so important because it actually helps us mindfully identify what it is that we want to step into, how it is that we want to add simplicity to our lives. And of course, it's committing to a certain course of action. And that commitment is super important when it comes to actually stepping into how we want to simplify our lives. Next is creativity, the use of imagination or original thought to find the solution that works for you. And in this one, I love imagination, original thought, and finding the solution that works for you, because it is so important to find what works for each and every one of us. What works for me isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for the person sitting next to you. And so we really have to be creative with our solutions. Next is patience. And patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. And with this one, I would like to highlight the without getting angry or upset. I've gotten angry and upset many times along this process, and I really don't think it's about without getting angry or upset, but it's more about approaching that anger in a level-headed way, feeling it and not expressing it out externally, and just kind of processing it in the slow way, feeling it, and then moving forward when you feel capable and ready. And then strength. Strength is the capacity of an object or a substance to withstand great pressure or force. And with all of these other things, I think you actually build strength as you move through those certain processes. So all four of these things are definitely qualities that help us as we try to figure out how we want to add simplicity to our lives. Now this slide. How do people feel about math? Do we have math lovers? We don't love math here. As a fellow creative, I didn't love math too much either, but I've actually realized that math is a great example of how we can simplify our lives. Because we start out with this big, complicated problem, and we have to break it down to find that simple solution. And there's a process that we have to go through to kind of break it down, but at the end of it, we get that solution, and that's kind of what we're looking for. Can someone read this for me? It's a little.
To simplify a mathematical expression is to represent it in the least complicated form possible. In general, the simplest form is one that has used the fundamental properties of numbers, exponents, algebraic rules, etc., to remove any duplication or redundancy from the expression.
Thank you so much. And I love the phrase here, remove any duplication or redundancy. Because when we have duplications in our life, that's kind of what I view. That's kind of what I view when we try to copy and paste somebody else's definition. So that is a duplication of sorts. So we have to remove those duplications from our lives, really discover what it is that we believe, and apply that to our lives. And also redundancies. Have you ever had a certain behavior that you don't love that you do, but you kind of still do it, and you're kind of like, oh, that's not good for me, but I'm going to still do it? Those are kind of the redundancies that we need to figure out how to remove, and so we can actually find the simplicity in our lives. And actually, before I move to the next slide, I would love to hear from you guys. So the question on here is, what is something that you would like to simplify? Does anyone want to share their answer today?
I said interpersonal connection.
Yeah.
I just feel like we have so many possibilities for connection in the world, but it's hard to find that quality and simple.
Mm-hmm.
And almost like there's so many connections, it makes it hard to do it in a way that's useful and simple. So that was mine.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, same. I'm just like, I definitely would. Sorry, go ahead.
I said nutrition, and we
Yeah.
were talking about it a little bit, but it's like it feels very complicated reading the labels. And yes, grocery store has like all the perfect things on the outside, which I get that trick, but when it's kind of like making meals or knowing if I got a protein for the day or those kind of things, it just feels like it's so much work
Yeah.
and it's easier to eat.
They definitely make it easier to not eat the healthy stuff. But anybody else want to share kind of what they're working on simplifying?
Clutter. Clutter.
Clutter, oh yes, clutter is a big one. That is a big one. And so once we identify what we want to simplify, that's actually we answered the first question. This is a series of 5 questions that we can ask ourselves in order to find that solution. So like math has a process, this is kind of the process I go through when I'm trying to figure out how to simplify my life. So the first question, what do I want to simplify? This is kind of that clarifying question. We need to identify what it is that we're trying to simplify. How would this simplify my life? That is supposed to have an E on the end.
Simple.
It's simplified. But, and this is actually a measured kind of question. We can actually look at this and ask ourselves, how would this actually simplify my life? An example of this would be, if I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I have 2 extra hours in my day to kind of have a relaxing morning, and that will simplify my life the rest of my day. What about this needs to be simplified? This is just a way to dive even deeper in that initial question so that we can identify what it is actually that we're trying to simplify in that process. What do I have the capacity and ability to change? This one's important because sometimes we want to change everything, but we might not have the right tools for that. So this one really calls us to think about what we can do for ourselves and what we may need help with and what we may need to learn. And then the last question is, what do I need, or when do I need to get this done by? We've all, or at least I have, kicked the can down the road and just kind of kept pushing things off. This last one really helps us to identify that deadline, that time that we need to get this done. So these are the 5 questions. And when you answer these 5 questions, like you were saying, simplicity adds ease in our lives. And that's just the last little thing, is that ease allows us to gently, slowly, and gradually live our lives and learn how to shift into living a more simple life. And that is everything that I have on simplicity. Thank you guys so much for bearing with me. I'm not a public speaker. This is like the first time I'm doing this, and I'm just really grateful for this.
You're doing great.
So calming, your voice is so calming.
Oh, thank
Quiet,
you.
it's very like soothing.
Thank you. But did you guys have any questions for me about simplicity? Yeah.
So in the last slide, you said gentle, slow, and gradual. Is there any?
Yeah.
Because what I find nice about simplicity, sometimes it helps me focus and maybe even speed up.
Yeah.
Is that like a alternative to gentle, slow, gradual, fast, rapid, and focus?
Well, in my experience, I've realized that gentle, slow, and gradual doesn't necessarily mean the pace in which we live. It's just kind of the ease in which life is. So I can be moving really fast, but feel really gentle and really at peace with myself and just gradually move quickly to where I need to go. But yeah, so thanks for that question. That was a really great question. Anybody? Yeah.
I'm kind of interested in like your personal journey.
Yeah.
From nursing to like this, I guess it's like a recovery thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I was definitely mentally not happy, physically not happy, really knew that I needed to find purpose in life, and I love how that's kind of you guys' mission is purpose is important to find in life. And I started living more sustainably for myself because I was just trying to find my why to just life in general. And I found sustainability, and I started living sustainably. And then I realized that there were no resources locally for this problem. And I find a problem, I find a solution. That's kind of how I operate. And I realized that there are a bunch of zero-waste refill stores around the world, and I wanted to bring that here. So I planned, as a nurse, I was working the evening shift, and I would get the kids to bed. I was a children's mental health nurse. And I would get the kids to bed and then get to work and planning the business. And yeah, so that's kind of happened for a year. And then I finally decided to start shifting my life. And slowly for a year, I was doing pop-ups. Oh, you're good. And then COVID happened, so we had to shift everything online. So I've been through a lot of shifts and changes, and I'm actually going through one right now. Our business is having to move locations, so I'm kind of trying to shift and move and find a new home for that. So it's definitely ease, gentle, gradual living is my goal. It's not quite where I am yet, but I'm kind of using that formula that I kind of presented to you guys to figure out how to eventually reach that. Everywhere in my life is simple, and I'm just at peace with life. That's my goal. Yeah, thanks for that question. Did that answer sufficiently?
Yes, yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's a bumpy road, but lots of lessons learned and lots of life has been lived. But yeah.
What are the main products that you offer? Is it household, other?
Yeah. So we currently offer like hand soaps, dish soaps, shampoos, conditioners, and that's the refill sector. And then we also have products. So anything that's reusable, compostable, recyclable, we'll have those products, like those reusable dish brushes. So you can come in, get a wooden dish brush, and then just replace the head and compost the other part. So we just try to have those simple swaps to help people transition into that sustainable living, because that's, you got to unlearn a lot of things that we've kind of learned as a society and shift into a new way of living. So yeah, that's what we have.
So if someone was interested in more sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah.
Where would you suggest? Obviously, not all of your products. But where would you suggest? Sorry.
Yeah, so there's this thing called a zero waste audit. Excuse me. And that is a way that you can actually look at where you waste the most. Because like I was saying, even with simplicity, you have to consider what works for your life and what you actually need in your life. And that's where I always suggest people start. Because there is no one product. I mean, reusable towels are a great way, to swap out those paper towels and cut down on some things that paper towels contribute to negatively in our environment. But it's really about seeing what you actually throw away the most. And with zero waste audits, you actually tally what trash you throw away for a certain amount of time. You could say a month. And then at the end of that month, you look at it and you say, oh, this is what I throw away the most. So this is where I should start. And then you can come back to the shop and talk to me about kind of where we can help you kind of solve that solution. Yeah, so that's the long-winded answer to that question. Thanks so much for that. That was
It's like, I love the idea of simplicity, but I think there are certain things in the world that demand complexity.
oh yeah.
So I'm curious, like, how you hold that tension, like, or how that relates in your life to, like,
Oh yeah.
like big social issues. Those aren't simple. We don't want to oversimplify those, right?
No.
There's places like we don't
No,
want
no.
simplicity. I
No. And I think, so I want to challenge the concept of simplicity a little bit. Because I agree, simplicity is not simple, it's not easy.
Right.
And, but it does add ease. And I think that the math kind of equation that I had up there, that's how you can kind of view these social justice issues, these huge issues that we have in front of us. It's this big, long-winded equation that we have to figure out how to break down. Where is the breakdown of these things? And then find that solution. It may not be a simple solution, but I think the process of simplicity, the process of breaking it down is kind of that first step to shifting the society.
Maybe create space for like slowing down and actually being with it.
Exactly. With those kind of things, our emotions get involved.
Sure.
And our emotions,
My emotions are complex.
all emotions are so very complex. No, yeah. As I mentioned,
Part of being creative, maybe, right?
it is. I used to work in mental health, and I'm very passionate about that as well. Environment, mental health, community, those are kind of my huge pillars. And we do have to consider our emotions and other people's emotions and all of these things. And that's kind of the most complex, honestly, part of it. And I definitely think breaking it down still would be helpful. Just tackling what we actually need to tackle instead of getting lost in those emotions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, thanks. That was a good question. Any other questions for me today?
I wonder, and this may not be just on you, but
Yeah.
on our group here, examples where an obstacle are the other people around us, whether it's within our home or within our workplace or kind of wherever,
Yeah.
as that can be a challenge.
So, yeah, it's so hard. I have experience with that. And I love the kind of idea that we can agree to disagree, and not in a not productive way, but in a, I understand that that's where you are, but this is where I'm moving, and I'm going to keep moving in this direction regardless of where you are. And you can follow me, you can come along for the ride eventually, but right now, we might not be on the same path.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my take on it, but this is completely open to how you guys have kind of dealt with that in your lives. Yeah. Did anyone else have anything to
I guess I'm just in response to a question. I work at a large company, and that is definitely a thing where you kind of have to solve a problem. You might identify a solution, but you have to get everybody's buy-in. That's definitely a giant thing. I'm still trying to figure that out, but it's that almost in itself. I guess you could think about your equation where you're trying to simplify. Okay, what is the way to navigate this group right now? I think that's almost just a skill in itself. I'm definitely trying to learn.
It sounds like you have the intention. You just need to work on the creativity and the strength and the patience and all that kind of stuff. But that's amazing that you're doing that within your company. I'm sure that's cheering you on. Thanks. Did you have a question?
Well, I guess I had some of the question and observation. I was curious that if I simplify a task or a portion of my life or something, then I try to reward myself. And that, whether it's building a puzzle or reading or just meditating, and always kind of curious, like, do you ever find time to just enjoy the simplicity of your life?
Oh yeah, that has been huge, that work-life balance, that making sure that I'm not just always running and doing things, but resting. That's the example that I said of waking up at 5:30 in the morning, so I have 2 extra hours. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I wake up earlier so I can have that time and meditate and do my yoga and drink my lemon water and have that peace before I start my day. And throughout my day, I'll do my work and then I'll take a break and I'll play Angry Birds and just enjoy those little things in life and watch my little Grey's Anatomy every now and then. So I definitely have those outlets of enjoying life, just enjoying those small things and being present in those moments inside. Where to on my time. But yeah, it's super important to be mindful and stay on your self-care routines and just all that kind of stuff.
I want to throw an observation out too to the group. So when we talk about especially like social issues or with work, I think a lot of times simplicity doesn't mean like 1 or 2 things. I think it's the clarity part of simplicity that's important. So like for social issues, it might be still only 12, 20 things, but if you can define those, there's clarity around each of those pieces versus just that emotional swirl that makes it feel overwhelming. So it may not, some situations may not be a couple answers, it may be a lot, but it may just be that you need to understand what those pieces are. Understand people's personalities. Sometimes there have been people at work at agencies too, there's times where you're not going to win someone, so you don't even borrow that person, you go on to the next person. But you understand the pieces of that puzzle when you approach it.
Yeah. Just to speak to that, as a business owner, there are so many different things that I need to simplify in my business. Because when I started this, I was not business savvy and I did things based on what I thought I should do, not, what would actually simplify my processes. So I have a huge list of this is what I need to do, this is all of the ways I need to simplify, and it's not just 1 or 2 things. But I know that with that last question, when will I do this? I can schedule those things out, in a timely way, and that allows me to have ease and not, I need to do this and this and this and this, but just prioritizing what needs to be done first and then taking those steps. So I love that you added that because that's super important. Were there any other questions, comments?
I just to piggyback on that, as also being a business owner, I know that there's systems that exist and people that are smarter than me, and I feel like sometimes I complicate things by trying to find simple solutions to things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm spending way more time either researching or like, oh no, there has to be a better way, let me just think about it, let me Google 5 million other things, instead of just like find a professional, take care of it the first one. Or just give me a similar answer that I'm not thinking of, but I'm just going down that rabbit hole.
And that's the question of, do I have the ability?
Yes.
Or do I need to, source outwards?
I'll figure it out.
But also, even if you have the ability, is it the best use of your time?
Yes, that's an important question to ask. Yeah. Probably not. That is usually the answer, but yeah. Were there any other questions or comments?
I'll just add something based on what I've heard people share. And I think what Jeremy had pointed out too, what I'm hearing is that simplification to me means more of the process, even if the thing remains complex and complicated. So the way you're thinking about how to approach something could be simplified versus actually making the thing simple as like the goal. So the thing can remain complex, and when things are kind of like external, those are out of your control. You really can't change people's minds and things like that. But your own process can be simple, so that's kind of like where I'm starting to understand like the gentle, the slow, the gradual. It's like your own process is that, but your result can be fast, rapid, and so that's like the outcome of, but like it's all kind of like is all kind of starting with you or what you want to simplify, where can you simplify, is all process oriented is what I'm like hearing people are hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, I just had a little aha moment.
Yeah.
Because it's about your perspective,
Yeah.
right? And if you allow things to seem too complex, well, then that's a reason not to do anything.
Yeah. That'll like freeze. You'll freeze and not want to move anywhere.
Your comment makes me think about that home or whatever, and it's like, you know, when I was young, I tried to change the world, and then I couldn't do that. I tried to change my country, and then my family, and then whatever. And as I got older, I realized, like, if I changed myself, then that could impact, like, go on and on.
We cannot change anybody except for me. I learned that lesson the hard way. But to go back to what you were saying about this is a process, I did not double check with you because I have a workbook for like this whole thing, and I emailed it to you as a PDF. Okay, okay. But is there any way that I could like distribute that, like email wise?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Just so that you guys have that as a resource for you to work through your own systems and simplify your lives. Because I think if everyone in this world simplified their life, we'd be much happier. But yeah. Thank you guys so much. Were there any other questions?
Thank you very much.